Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really digging into a cornerstone text, one of those books that just lasts. It's about how we connect, how we interact.
We are talking about Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, a title everyone knows, right?
Absolutely. And it's fascinating because, it wasn't expected to be this huge phenomenon. First published way back 1937, I think. Small print run.
Yeah, and then boom. Overnight sensation.
Yeah.
Translated into, well, pretty much every language imaginable, sold millions upon millions. It obviously struck a massive chord.
And there's this great backstory. In the 20s, there was this huge 2-year survey. It cost something like $25,000 back then, which was a lot. Major institutions involved.
All right, they basically went into a typical town, Meriden, Connecticut,
Yeah.
and asked every single adult, like 156 questions, what are your problems? What are you interested in learning?
And what came back? Well, after basic health concerns, the number 2 thing people desperately wanted to understand was people.
Exactly. How to get along, how to make people like you, how to persuade them. The stuff Carnegie wrote about. And the crazy thing, the survey committee looked for a practical book on this.
Yeah.
Nothing. Zip, nada. This fundamental human skill, how to navigate relationships, wasn't really written down in a practical way.
So Carnegie saw the gap. He drew on tons of interviews. Edison, Roosevelt, big business leaders, plus 15 years of teaching this stuff in his courses.
So our mission today is to really pull out those core insights, those principles, and give you the essence of this classic, kind of a shortcut to getting up to speed on, well, a vital life skill.
Okay, let's jump in. Where does Carnegie start? The absolute basics of connecting.
The very first principle he lays down, and it's a big one, maybe the hardest one.
Go on.
Don't criticize, condemn, or complain.
Oof, yeah, that hits home. It feels so unnatural sometimes, doesn't it? Our first instinct is often to point out the flaw.
Totally. But Carnegie immediately shows why it's so ineffective. He uses examples like Two Gun Crowley, this cop killer who, while cornered, wrote a letter saying, "Under my coat is a weary heart, but a kind one that would do nobody any harm." He saw himself as defending himself.
Wow, and Al Capone, same thing, right? Considered himself a public benefactor, just giving people excitement, and felt totally abused and misunderstood.
Exactly. Or even high-level scandals like Albert Fall and the Teapot Dome thing. Took bribes, used military force against competitors. But in his own mind, he wasn't the villain. Carnegie points out that even hardened criminals rarely blame themselves. They justify everything.
So the psychology is criticism just backfires. It makes people dig in their heels.
Precisely. It wounds their pride, their sense of importance. It arouses resentment and defensiveness. If guys facing prison sentence don't accept blame, how likely is it that, your colleague or your spouse will respond well when you point out their mistakes?
Lincoln is a great example here. Apparently, early in his career, he was pretty cutting with his criticism. Wrote letters that made lifelong enemies.
Yeah, he learned the hard way. But he changed. The book uses the example of General Meade after Gettysburg.
Right.
Lincoln was absolutely furious. Meade didn't pursue Lee, thought the war could have ended right there. He wrote this incredibly harsh letter.
And then
He never sent it. He looked at it and realized, what's the point? It won't make Meade do it. It'll just cause bitterness. That shift in him was profound. He learned restraint.
there's that poem, too, Father Forgets, about regretting harsh words to a child. It really drives home the emotional cost.
And John Wanamaker, the department store guy, he said it took him 30 years to learn it was foolish to scold. He realized he had enough trouble managing his own limitations without worrying about fixing everyone else. It's that inward focus again.
Okay, so step 1, bite your tongue. Resist the urge to criticize, but then, how do you influence people? If you can't condemn, what's the alternative? Which brings us to what he calls the big secret.
Ah, yes. This is fundamental.
Yeah.
Carnegie says, flat out, the only way to get anybody to do anything is to make the other person want to do it.
The only way. That sounds absolute.
Well, think about it. Sure, you can use force, threats. You can, point a gun and take someone's watch. But have you influenced them? Have you won their cooperation? No. That just breeds negativity down the line.
So it's about internal motivation, not external pressure.
Exactly. He talks about basic human drives. Freud's ideas get a mention. But he zeroes in on what John Dewey called the desire to be important. Carnegie says this phrase, the desire to be important is key. It's this deep, driving human need for significance, for recognition.
Okay, so that's the why. You tap into that fundamental need.
Right. And the examples are great. Stan Novak's kid, Tim, who absolutely refused to go to kindergarten, total meltdown.
What did they do? Order him.
Nope. Stan and his wife thought, okay, what would make Tim want this? They listed fun kindergarten stuff, finger painting, singing songs, and started doing it themselves in front of him, acting like it was the best thing ever.
Huh, so Tim sees them having fun.
And suddenly he's curious. He wants in. They told him, well, you have to go to kindergarten to learn how to do these things. Next morning, kids packed and ready by the door. No fight. They just made him want it by showing his potential gain.
That's clever. It's about shifting the focus entirely away from what you want.
Totally. Like the story of getting a lower rent for a hotel ballroom. Carnegie didn't walk in complaining about his budget. He sat down with the manager and listed the pros and cons for the hotel. Okay, if you book my lectures, you get this guaranteed income, even if it's lower. If you keep it open hoping for a big banquet, maybe you get more, maybe you get nothing, and it costs you to advertise.
So he framed it around the manager's problems and goals.
Exactly. He focused entirely on the manager's perspective. And by showing how his proposal actually helped the manager solve a problem, predictable income versus uncertainty, he got a huge discount without ever saying, I need this cheaper.
It reminds me of that Henry Ford quote the book uses. Something about the secret of success being seeing things from the other person's point of view.
That's the one. If there's any one secret of success, it lies in the ability to get the other person's point of view and see things from that person's angle as well as from your own. So simple yet.
Yet most people, like 90% of the time, just talk about themselves, right? Those awful sales letters described, we want, we need, our goal is, who cares?
Exactly. That freight terminal letter example is perfect. It started with their problems congestion, overtime, and only bury the customer benefit way down at the end. Terrible approach.
But the rewritten version, it started by saying, we know you want your trucks unloaded fast. Then explain how late deliveries clog things up for everyone, including them. The request to deliver earlier was framed entirely as helping the customer get faster service.
Night and day difference. It's all about what's in it for you.
And Barbara Anderson getting job interviews by writing to banks in Phoenix. Same thing. Not just I need a job, here are my skills. It was my experience can help your growing bank achieve XYZ. Focus on their benefit.
That's why it works. It's rare. Most people are broadcasting their own needs. The person who genuinely tries to understand and serve the other person's interests, they have a massive advantage. Like Owen D. Young said, those people don't need to worry about their future.
And it's not about being sneaky, right? It's win-win. Tim's happy, the hotel manager's happy, Barbara gets interviews.
It's about finding that sweet spot where both people's desires overlap. Okay, let's get into some more specific principles for building these connections. Principle 1, which he lists again for emphasis, become genuinely interested in other people.
Genuinely, that's the key word. It's easy to pretend.
Right, but people can usually tell. He points to that study by the New York Telephone Company, the word I, used almost 4,000 times in 500 phone calls. We are naturally self-focused.
The stars of our own show.
Totally. But the psychologist Alfred Adler had a stark warning. People not interested in their fellows have the greatest difficulties in life and cause the most injury to others. It's that serious.
Theodore Roosevelt seemed to be a natural at this. The story about him remembering his valet's name, his wife's name, even knowing she wanted to see a bobwhite, and then actually calling her over when he saw one. That's incredible attention to detail.
That's genuine interest. It's not just remembering a fact. It's caring enough to act on it. Think about getting busy authors to speak. It wasn't demands. It was expressing sincere admiration for their work and asking for their advice. Flattery, but rooted in genuine appreciation.
Or that bank customer staying loyal just because one manager took a moment to ask about his mother's health.
That's a tiny
Human gesture, but huge impact.
And C.M. Naffel, the fuel salesman. Years of failure trying to sell to this one chain store exec. Then one day, he just ditches the sales pitch and asks about the guy's passion preparing for a debate.
And just listens.
For 2 hours. Just genuine interest in the other guy's problems and passions. And the executive, feeling truly heard, just offers him the business. Didn't even have to ask.
That Thanksgiving nurse story, too. She's lonely, sees a lonely kid, and just focuses entirely on the child's feelings, stays late. That connection matters so much.
It really highlights that deep need to feel seen and understood. Okay, principle 2, smile.
Simple, but powerful. And again, genuine, right? Not the fake plastered on kind.
Absolutely. A phony smile is transparent, but a real one. Professor James McConnell found smiling people are better managers, teachers, sellers. Even raise happier kids. It communicates warmth, openness.
I remember the bit about the employment manager choosing the smiling applicant over the more educated but sour one. It says a lot about approachability.
And the phone power advice, smile when you talk on the phone because
Right.
people can hear it in your voice. That guy choosing a company based purely on the friendly voice. It happens.
The stockbroker story is amazing. This guy was apparently a real grouch. Decided to force himself to smile every single day.
Yeah, he'd smile at his reflection. Then his wife, she must have thought he'd lost it. Then the elevator guy, the cashier, everyone.
And it changed things.
Radically. Not only did people respond better to him, but he started feeling better. He started appreciating people, seeing their view. He said it transformed his whole life, made him happier, built friendships. It was a conscious discipline.
Like that old Chinese proverb, a man without a smiling face must not open a shop. It's basic business, basic human connection.
Couldn't be simpler or cheaper. Principle 3. Remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language.
Oh, this one is huge. People love hearing their own name.
Don't they just? Jim Farley, FDR's campaign manager, supposedly knew 50,000 names by heart. That ability was a massive factor in FDR's success. It makes people feel recognized, important.
Andrew Carnegie used it brilliantly in business. Merging with the Pullman Company, he suggested calling it the Pullman Palace Car Company. Put Pullman's name front and center.
Smart move. Appealed straight to Pullman's ego. FDR did it too, right? That story with the mechanic called to the White House.
Yeah, FDR heard his name once, sought him out later just to say thanks by name, and then sent him a signed photo with another note. Imagine how that mechanic felt.
Valued. Seen. It takes effort, though. Napoleon III apparently had a system. Make them repeat it, spell it, say it yourself, write it down later. It's work.
But worth it. Like Ken Nottingham in the cafeteria just started saying, "Hello, Eunice," to the server instead of just ordering. Changed her whole demeanor, her service, made her feel like a person, not a function.
Using a name cuts through the anonymity. It singles someone out in a positive way, makes them feel individually acknowledged. Powerful stuff.
Okay, principle 4, be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves.
This one is almost a superpower. The author tells that story about a dinner party where he mostly just listened intently to a botanist talking about, well, botany.
Right, he barely said anything himself.
Exactly, just asked a few questions, showed real interest. And afterwards, the botanist told the host Carnegie was a fascinating conversationalist. All he did was listen well.
Huh, that's brilliant. It's about making the other person feel heard.
Like Charles W. Eliot, the Harvard president, said, "Exclusive attention to the person who is speaking to you is very important. Nothing else is so flattering as that." People noticed how intensely he listened.
The story of the angry customer at the Detmer Woolen Company is a perfect example. Guy comes in steaming mad about a bill.
And the manager doesn't argue, doesn't interrupt, just lets him vent. Listens patiently until the guy runs out of steam.
And the result?
The anger dissolves. The guy calms down, pays the bill, places an even bigger order, and becomes a loyal customer and friend for life. All because he was allowed to talk himself out and felt truly heard.
Wow. Listening diffuses conflict.
It really can. Think about that Western Union messenger boy who built relationships with famous people like Grant and Emerson. He wrote to them, asking them about their lives. He listened through letters.
Even Freud's patients mention his incredible listening. That feeling of concentrated attention is rare and valuable.
Dr. Nicholas Murray Butler had a harsh take. People who only talk about themselves are hopelessly uneducated. Maybe strong words, but the point is, self-absorption closes you off.
And that brutal truth Carnegie shares. Your own toothache matters more to you than a famine killing millions elsewhere. It sounds callous, but it's human nature. Remember that, if you want to be interesting.
Be interested. Listen more than you talk. Like the author finally winning over that chef for his bread business. Years of pitching bread failed. 2 hours asking about the chef's culinary passions. Success.
Principle 5, talk in terms of the other person's interests. Okay, we've kind of touched on this with the eager want, but this is about using their specific passions as the topic of conversation.
Exactly. Like Edward Harriman getting that meeting with the notoriously inaccessible R.J. Funkhauser. He didn't beg for a job. He found out Funkhauser was proud of his rags to riches story and started the conversation there. Talked about something Funkhauser was intensely interested in himself.
Smart. And the teacher, Mr. Rollin, with the shy student, Chris?
Yet instead of just focusing on grades, he tapped into Chris's deep desire to feel important. Invited him to join the advanced class, praised his potential, even put up that "you are important" sign. He connected learning to Chris's need for significance and potential interests.
It's all about framing things from their perspective, connecting to their world.
Which leads right into Principle 6, another one that gets repeated because it's so central. Make the other person feel important and do it sincerely.
Sincerely. Again, that qualifier, fake flattery is obvious.
Right. This is about genuine appreciation and recognition. The story of the lawyer visiting his elderly aunt is classic. He just genuinely admired her beautiful old house and her things.
Things nobody else probably noticed anymore.
Exactly. He wasn't looking for anything, just offered sincere appreciation. And she, feeling seen and valued after maybe years of being overlooked, starving for a little recognition, as the book puts it, spontaneously offers him her beloved Packard car.
Wow. That's powerful.
Or James Adamson landing that massive order from George Eastman, founder of Kodak. Yeah, he pitched his product, but he also took time to genuinely admire Eastman's office woodwork and congratulate him on his philanthropic work. He acknowledged Eastman the man, not just Eastman the potential customer.
And Claude Moret saving that key employee who wanted to quit. He didn't just offer more money. He sat her down and told her how vital she was, specifically to the entire team, how much they all relied on her, made her feel indispensable.
And the key is often specific praise. Keith Roper dealing with that printer who was doing sloppy work. General criticism wasn't working. But when Roper found one job the guy had done well and praised its specific qualities and importance, the printer's whole attitude turned around. He felt his skill was recognized.
William James's quote fits here, doesn't it? About us only being half awake, having untapped potential. Sincere appreciation can help unlock that.
Like Marie the dishwasher. Just telling this seemingly ordinary servant she had hidden talents, treasures within, completely changed her. It wasn't empty flattery. It was seeing potential and giving her permission to believe in it. Made her feel important enough to shine.
So looking back at these first few groups of principles, no criticism, arouse want, genuine interest, smile, name, listen, their interests, feeling important. What's the big picture?
It really boils down to acknowledging and respecting the other person's humanity, right? Their ego, their desires, their need to feel significant. These are all just practical ways to signal, I see you, you matter, your world is important. It's the bedrock of positive interaction.
Makes sense. It's about validating that core need we all have.
Okay, let's pivot slightly.
Yeah.
How do we take these ideas beyond just making connections and actually start, well, winning people to our way of thinking, influencing them, meeting them?
Right. So Carnegie moves into how to win people to your way of thinking. And the very first principle here echoes something we started with, but it's crucial for persuasion. Avoid arguments.
Avoid them altogether, pretty much. Because, as Carnegie says, 9 times out of 10, an argument ends with both sides more convinced than ever that they are absolutely right. You can't win an argument in terms of changing someone's mind or building goodwill.
Even if you technically prove you're right.
Especially then. You might win the point, but you've hurt their pride, made them feel inferior. You've lost the person. Ben Franklin said it. You may achieve a victory sometimes, but it will be an empty victory because you will never get your opponent's goodwill.
That salesman, Patrick O'Hare, learned this, right? He used to love arguing with customers.
Yeah, and he got nowhere. Then he changed tactics. Customer says, your trucks are no good, I'm buying Brand X. Instead of fighting, O'Hare would say, you know what? Brand X trucks are good. They're a fine company. You won't make a mistake buying from them.
Disarming, isn't it? Takes all the fight out of the situation.
Completely. Once the customer felt validated, then O'Hare could gently point out the strengths of his trucks. He stopped arguing and started agreeing first. His sales soared.
It's like that old poem. Here lies the body of William J., who died maintaining his right of way.
He was right, dead right, as he sped along, but he's just as dead as if he had been wrong. Being right isn't always the point. Effective interaction is.
And the psychology behind it. We resist being told we're wrong because it attacks our ego, our self-esteem. It's not just the idea, it's my idea.
Exactly. Ben Franklin, again, learned this. A friend called him out for being too argumentative, so Franklin made it a rule to stop contradicting people directly. He started using softer phrases like, I conceive, or it appears to me.
And it worked.
Dramatically. Conversations became more pleasant, people were more receptive to his ideas, even when they initially disagreed. He learned to disagree agreeably.
The author's own story with the policeman about the dog off leash shows the contrast. First time, he argued the law, got a warning.
Second time, different officer, same situation. He immediately agrees, yes, officer, I know I shouldn't, It's a temptation. Sympathizes with the officer's job, talks about the potential danger to squirrels, the officer's interest.
And the officer softens completely.
Yeah. Ends up suggesting the author just let the dog run where he can't see him. By agreeing and seeing the officer's viewpoint, he turned an adversary into someone looking for a solution with him.
Okay, so avoid arguments. What else for influencing people? Principle 3 from part 4. Talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person.
Oh, this is a great one for taking the sting out of correction. It shows humility. Carnegie talks about wanting to correct his young secretary, Josephine, for a mistake.
But he stopped himself.
Yeah, he thought back to his own early career, his own blunders. So when he did talk to her, he started by saying something like, "Josephine, you made a mistake, but goodness knows it's no worse than many I've made." It made the criticism so much easier to hear.
The architect presenting changes to a difficult client did this too, right? Started by admitting his own team's errors first.
Exactly. Took all the wind out of the client's sails. The client ended up minimizing the mistake and praising the architect. Admitting your own faults first makes it safe for the other person to accept theirs.
Clarence Orhusen did this with his teenage son who started smoking. Didn't just lecture.
No, he shared his own story. "Son, I started smoking around your age. You got a hold of me. Look at my cough now."
Yeah.
By admitting his own struggle, he connected with his son and made the advice feel less like a command and more like shared experience. Powerful.
It builds common ground. Even emperors don't like being told they messed up without some softening first.
Absolutely. Okay, principle 4. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders.
This feels very collaborative.
It is. Owen D. Young, the famous industrialist, apparently never gave direct order. He'd say, "You might consider this," or "Do you think that would work?" It respects the other person's intelligence and encourages buy-in.
Like that factory manager with the rush order. Could have just yelled, "Get this done!"
But instead, he gathered the workers and asked, "How can we figure out a way to produce this order in the time needed?" He threw the problem to them.
And they took ownership.
Totally. They came up with a plan themselves, felt motivated, and even beat the deadline. Asking engages people. Ordering can alienate them.
Okay, so these are key for influencing anyone. How do they specifically apply when you're in a leadership position, trying to guide or change people without, causing resentment?
Well, you see a lot of the same core ideas come back because leadership is influence.
Sure.
Principle 6, make the other person feel important and do it sincerely, shows up again.
Because it's fundamental to morale, right? People work harder and are more loyal when they feel valued and significant. Those earlier stories, like The Ant or George Eastman, show how appreciation inspires.
Exactly. And principle 8, try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. This is absolutely crucial for leaders dealing with conflict or needing to get buy-in.
That phrase Carnegie suggests, "I don't blame you one iota for feeling as you do. If I were you, I would undoubtedly feel just as you do." That sounds incredibly powerful.
It is, because it validates their feelings before you address the issue. It acknowledges that their perspective makes sense, given their experiences. Think about Al Capone, terrible guy, but given his background, maybe you would end up like him. It fosters empathy, not judgment.
The author using this with the woman who corrected his geography mistake about Louisa May Alcott.
Perfect example. He got this indignant letter. Instead of defending himself, he wrote back, apologizing profusely, validating her point, thanking her for correcting him. "You were right. I was wrong. Thank you so much."
And she melted.
Completely. Wrote back apologizing for her tone. He saw it from her viewpoint. She cared about accuracy. Felt strongly and validated that first.
President Taft dealing with that angry mother whose son didn't get an appointment. He waited, let things cool, then wrote sympathetically.
Yep. Acknowledged her disappointment, explained his position gently, showed he understood her maternal ambition and frustration. Empathy first.
Jay Mangum getting the hotel manager to agree to shut down the escalator for repairs. He started by acknowledging the manager's biggest concern, guest inconvenience.
Right. He framed the short shutdown now as preventing a much longer, more painful shutdown later. He spoke directly to the manager's priority of keeping guests happy in the long run.
And Mrs. Norris with her piano student, Babette, and the long fingernails. She sympathized with the sacrifice, praised the nails, then framed cutting them as necessary for Babette to achieve her own goal of playing beautifully.
Always connecting it back to their perspective, their desires. Which brings up Principle 5 again. Talk in terms of the other person's interests. For leaders, this is about motivation.
Like Saul Hurok handling the dramatic opera singer, Chalyapin, who suddenly claimed he was too sick to sing.
Hurok didn't argue about the sickness. He poured on the sympathy, offered to cancel immediately, and then mentioned the contract clause about Chalyapin having to pay the costs himself if he canceled.
Ah, appealed straight to Chalyapin's wallet and maybe his pride.
Bingo. Suddenly, Chalyapin felt well enough to perform. Hurak appealed to his self-interest.
The landlord dealing with the overdue tenant. Instead of threats, he appealed to the tenant's sense of fair play, his reputation as a man of his word.
Exactly. Appealed to the tenant's desire to see himself as honorable. Framed paying the rent as living up to his own self-image.
Okay, principle 9. Make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest. This feels like bringing it all together.
It is. It involves several techniques. One is appealing to nobler motives. We all like to think of ourselves as fair, honest, generous.
Like John D. Rockefeller Jr. asking photographers not to hound his kids. He appealed to their feelings as parents, their desire to protect children.
Right. Or Cyrus Curtis getting Louisa May Alcott to write for his magazine by offering to donate the fee to her favorite charity. He made the task serve her altruistic values. The customer service rep letting the customer decide the fair adjustment on a bill appealed to the customer's sense of fairness.
Part of making people happy to do things is also dramatizing your ideas, making them vivid.
Yes, make it memorable. Jim Yeamans didn't just say the old cash registers were inefficient. He threw a handful of pennies on the floor and said, "That's what you're literally losing with every transaction." Made it concrete.
The cold cream salesman putting 32 jars on the desk, each tagged with a research finding. Visual impact.
It grabs attention, makes the point stick. Another way is stimulating competition, appealing to that desire to excel, to win. Charles Schwab famously used challenges.
Theodore Roosevelt being spurred on by being called a coward. Al Smith challenging Lewis Laws to take on the impossible job of reforming Sing Sing prison.
Exactly. Frame it as a challenge, appeal to their pride and desire to prove themselves. Make them want to rise to it.
That contrast between ordering the boys to put out the fire in the park versus the second, gentler approach.
It's night and day. The second time, the guy approaches conversationally. "What you doing, boys?" Shares his own past interest. Used to love fires myself. Explains the danger to their park trees and suggests covering it with dirt as a way they can help protect their park. Cooperative, respectful, appeal to their better natures.
Okay, one more powerful leadership principle. Give a dog a good name. Principle 8 in part 4. Give someone a reputation to live up to.
This is about setting positive expectations. Dorothy Wroblewski helping that bank teller trainee who was slow at balancing her drawer.
Instead of nagging about the slowness,
She praised what the trainee was good at being friendly, accurate with customers, and then said, "I know you can master this balancing just as well." She gave her the reputation of being capable and accurate, and the trainee lived up to it.
the book also suggests changing but to and when giving praise and correction.
Yeah. "Johnny, we're proud you raised your grades, but your algebra needs work." The but cancels the praise. "Johnny, we're proud you raised your grades, and if you keep up that effort, your algebra will improve too." That feels encouraging. Maintains the positive reputation while suggesting improvement.
Marge Jacob getting those messy construction workers to clean up. She praised their excellent building work first.
And then casually mentioned that craftsmen who do such fine work usually keep their areas neat. Didn't order them, just gave them the good name of being excellent craftsmen and let them connect the dots. They cleaned up.
Master Sergeant Kaiser getting reservists to cut their hair by appealing to their status as leaders and saying he was getting his cut to set an example.
Gave them the reputation of leaders. They acted like leaders. Dr. Fitzhugh got his cleaner to meticulously clean his instruments by praising her amazing polishing skills on other things first, giving her that reputation for fine work.
The dancing teacher telling the struggling student she had natural rhythm, made the student believe it and try harder. Ely Culbertson being told he had a natural flair for bridge, gave him the confidence to pursue it.
It's about seeing potential and naming it. Like David's dad helping him with math by connecting it to his passion for TV repair, praising his efforts, making him feel capable. "You can figure this out. You need it for TVs." Gave him a reason and a reputation for competence.
Colonel House influencing President Wilson or handling William Jennings Bryan by making him feel too important for a task rather than just saying no. Same idea, appeal to their reputation and status.
Even Mrs. Gent stopping the kids running on her lawn by appointing the ringleader detective in charge of keeping others off, gave him a role, a reputation, and he enforced it.
It comes back to making the suggestion appealing, doesn't it? Compare barking, "John, clean the stockroom," to "John, could you handle the stockroom?" It'll give you a clear space later, and it really helps the company image you care about. One's in order, the other appeals to his interests and importance.
Exactly. It's all interconnected.
So if we try to wrap this all up, what's the overarching message from Carnegie?
I think it's that effective human interaction isn't about tricks or manipulation, not when done right anyway. It's about a deep, practical understanding of human nature. We all crave importance, appreciation, being heard. We act based on our own desires. These principles are just ways to genuinely acknowledge and work with those fundamental truths.
And it's amazing how potent they still are, almost a century later. The technology changes, but people.
People are still people. The core needs remain. Understanding these principles isn't just about business success. It's about better relationships everywhere, work, family, community. It's about connecting authentically.
Which brings up a final thought for you, the listener. In our world now, so much interaction is digital. Texts, email, Slack, Zoom. We lose a lot of those face-to-face cues, the easy smile, the attentive posture, the handshake.
That's a really interesting point. Does that make these principles less relevant? Or maybe even more so? Do we need to be even more intentional about conveying genuine interest, appreciation, and empathy when the medium makes it harder?
Something to ponder. Which of these classic principles could you consciously try to apply, maybe even today, in your own interactions, digital or otherwise?
Food for thought.
Thanks for diving deep with us into the enduring wisdom of Dale Carnegie.